Hello there, I'm Big Alias, and let's get annoyed. Let's adjust the mic, let's get annoyed. I want to get annoyed with some stuff. Somebody punched me in the face. Wait, you don't need to, I read this. I read this piece of text that made me annoyed. Ubisoft exec says gamers need to get comfortable with not owning your games. Ubisoft's director of subscription says that gamers need to start feeling comfortable with not owning the games they're playing. Oh, that's great. Oh, it's goddamn. I mean, I kind of saw this coming. I made a bunch of videos a few years back that I'm now allowed to be very smug about, where I talked about digital versus physical games, and I said this would happen. I said that if we allow, these companies to push digital games over physical games, then they can do something like this. If you own a disc, you own that disc. I mean, there's nothing. I guess aside for this like new methodology where they just give you the disc and that's your permission to play the game, but it's actually a download in that universe, then yes, they can restrict your game. But again, that wouldn't have been perpetuated if we didn't make this push for digital gaming. That wouldn't have happened. But I warned y'all, I told you, all of you, that something like this would come over the hill, and that this would happen, and they'd up the prices because they don't have to worry about distributors anymore. They don't have to worry about, the game stores saying, I'm sorry, but I'm not buying the game at that price. So they can up it. They can, absolutely choke you out on that one. And now they're saying things like, yeah, check it out. You don't own these games. For the exorbitant prices that they cost, the ridiculous amount of money that these games cost sometimes. But no, you absolutely don't own these games. And it's horrible. It's ridiculous. And it's such a far cry. Pardon the pun. Oh my god, I genuinely didn't mean that pun. That's awful. But it's such an Assassin's Creed away from how things used to be, where it's like you just had this experience and you can have it and you can do it, and you can buy this game, you buy this disc, you play the game, and that's yours, and you get to hold on to that for a while, or for as long as you want. Even this is something that you own. We're now in this kind of space where it really, transactionally, it really sucks. I can't think of anything else where you would invest this much money into it and it's not something that is yours. I mean, if you spent the 70 quid on Coke, it's your Coke. You do whatever you want with it. You can spread it on toast if you want to. You can just put it in a little baggie and keep it forever if you want to. And that's considered very consumer. Why did I go for Coke? It's considered, very, very consumable, and certainly not something that has a lot of ownership to it, but it does, and I just think that this is awful. I think this is absolutely terrible, particularly coming from Ubisoft, the company who refused to innovate any of their games, and the company who just keep making these ridiculously large games and investing all of their money on bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, rather than just making stuff that people would like. I know that I recently did a review for Assassin's Creed Mirage, and hopefully it came out before this video, but I'm not entirely sure. But spoiler alert, I actually thought it was pretty cool that they were going back to that old style of game. But straight after that, I read a news report about how Assassin's Creed, Red, is going to be the biggest, most ambitious, Ubisoft game. And it's just going to be a huge map with about 100+ hours of menial tasks to do that they're investing millions and millions into. And it's just, stop wasting your money. And maybe you won't have to do stuff like this. Maybe you'll be able to tell people, actually, there's a bit of permanence to what you're doing. But a lot of the speculation currently is that this is actually saying that it's all going to be subscription services. This would be even worse. I mean, that would be absolutely awful. Oh my god. I mean, I know I like Game Pass, but we've seen the converging split off for all of these game subscription services, and I think all of them are just too expensive for a bunch of stuff that where you don't get to curate what you get. Game Pass is amazing, but I can't imagine that they run that at very much of a profit. It's just a gateway to get people in. But once you're in and you have your not Activision because it's owned by Microsoft, but you have your Ubisoft and you have your EA, what have you, splitting converging paths, those aren't going to be worth it. There's no way those are going to become worth it, especially if you don't get to own the game. If there's anyone who wants some sort of permanence to the game, then they're not going to pay that, and that's not really how gamers feel about things. So I hope, hopefully something like that would crash and burn. And it's such a bizarre situation where I'm sat here hoping that Microsoft are able to acquire things and accumulate things so that this doesn't, have too much of a splash, too much of an impact. We don't end up with what we have with TV streaming services, which is 50,000 different TV streaming services just to get what you used to get with your subscription box. And I really hope we don't end up down that path. Oddly enough, the only thing saving us from that is the horrible monopolized situation that Microsoft seem to be trying to get themselves into, because then it would just be like, hey, you have your Microsoft or you have your Sony. And as bad as that is, in terms of how much you'd end up paying for the subscription service, it might actually be good. But the best case scenario is that people just don't accept this and just push back. But unfortunately, and what I don't think a lot of people take into consideration, is that audiences change, and the demographic of 18 to whatever, let's say 18 to 30 year olds, in 10 years that becomes an entire different group of people, and these people become used to something that has always been there. And if this is always the case for them, then they're not going to fight it, and that's a real shame. This could be the nail in the coffin for gaming for me if this was the case. But I don't know. We'll see if it ever happens. Hopefully they're just completely incorrect. I mean, Google said that Stadia will be the next big thing, so clearly these execs don't know shit. There's a big shock. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that, and I guess I'll see everyone later.
The PlayStation is only $149, and you can also get leading titles.